It was a crisp Friday morning, the kind where the air is filled with the promise of fresh starts. But for me, it was yet another day of staring into the fragile remains of my marriage. The night before, my wife, Linda, had brought up her plans again, to go on a date with another man. She used the word date, which made the whole thing even more absurd. Here I was, married for nearly 12 years, and my wife was looking to relive the thrill of her 20s, the excitement, the forbidden taste of something new. She didn't say it explicitly, but her intentions were clear. This wasn't about us, this was about her. I had stood in the doorway, folding my arms across my chest as she spoke, explaining her justifications in the same nonchalant tone she used when explaining why she bought that pricey handbag last year. She had earned it, she said. She deserved a break, a release. I didn't argue, not because I agreed, but because I knew there was no changing her mind. Linda had already made her decision. "You're okay with this, right, Ron?" she asked, her voice almost hopeful, her eyes locking onto mine, searching for some affirmation. I paused, sighed deeply, then spoke in a calm tone. "Linda, you've already decided, haven't you? It's not like I control you. You're your own person." Linda was surprised, clearly not expecting this tone. "Of course I mind," I continued. "But I know you, Linda. You've decided to see this through no matter what. What choice do I have?" She gave me a small smile, almost relieved. "I love you, Ron. I'll make amends, you'll see," she said. I clenched my jaw, nodding. "So, you know it's wrong then?" "What do you mean?" She furrowed her brows, confusion across her face. "Do you think our parents would agree with what you're doing?" I asked, voice steady. Linda didn't answer. She lowered her eyes, silence settling between us. That was my cue to let her words linger in her consciousness, to let her think about how twisted this was. I leaned in, speaking softly. "You know it's wrong, Linda. You just admitted it." She shifted uncomfortably, her voice betraying uncertainty. "But you said I could do it, Ron." "No, I never said that. All I admitted was that I can't stop you." My words hung heavily in the air. "But I do not approve in any way." Her expression turned defensive. "I thought you would understand." "I do understand," I replied, my tone measured. "I understand that you want to be with someone else. You want to feel that thrill. I get it. What I don't get is why you have to do this to us. You're choosing someone else's company over mine." Linda's eyes darted to the side, avoiding my gaze. She was quiet again, and that silence spoke volumes. Finally, I asked, "By the way, what's his name?" "It doesn't matter," she muttered. "It doesn't matter?" I laughed bitterly. "Of course it matters. Whoever he is, he's going to change everything." I hesitated before continuing. "Just know this, Linda. I don't want you to go out with him, and your date will have consequences." "What consequences?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're not just beautiful, Linda. You're also intelligent," I said, my eyes narrowing slightly. "I've always told you that. Apparently, you think I say it only because I have to, but I mean it. I'm giving you the responsibility of dealing with the consequences of this decision." She frowned, almost as if she was gauging my seriousness. "You're bluffing. You love me. You always give me what I want." I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. "I can't stop you from doing stupid things, Linda. But you've been warned. You're on your own for this one." With that, I grabbed my keys and left before she could say anything else. Thursday evening came, and I packed my belongings into a suitcase, carrying it into the guest room. Linda found me halfway through packing. "What are you doing, Ron?" she asked, her voice incredulous. "Moving out of our bedroom," I replied coldly, barely glancing at her. Her voice wavered between anger and disbelief. "Are you really throwing a tantrum like a child?" Without another word, I hung my clothes in the guest room closet and continued packing, not bothering to respond to her taunts. Friday morning, I woke early. This day would be different, and I intended to make it so. I left the house and went to a high-end salon. For the first time in what felt like ages, I got a professional haircut, had my beard meticulously shaved, and even had a manicure. At the clothing store next door, I bought myself a casual yet elegant outfit, a navy blazer, white shirt, and matching trousers. I was done looking like the man who was just waiting around. I then took my old car to the car wash, watching as it transformed into something presentable, something that reflected who I wanted to be, a man ready to face the consequences Linda set into motion. By the time I got home, Linda was just getting ready for her date. She came downstairs in a new dress I hadn't seen before. It was black, tight, and revealed more of her than she'd ever shown in public before. She paused on the last step, waiting for me to compliment her. I remained silent, my eyes cold. "Damn it, Ron," she said, a hint of desperation in her voice. "You look good. Where are you going?" "Out," I said, my voice dripping with indifference. "Out where?" she pressed, her tone rising. "Just out," I repeated. "What did you expect me to do? Sit around here while you run off to your new lover?" I shook my head slowly, my eyes piercing hers. "And here I thought you were smarter than this." Linda's face flushed, but she kept her composure. "Fine, I'm going. Don't let your ego get in the way." I smiled faintly, opening the garage door. "Don't worry about me, Linda. Just remember, there are always consequences." She turned on her heel and left without another word. I waited until she drove off before I made my way to meet someone who I had grown closer to over the past few months. Ava. Ava worked at my office, and we had always gotten along, our laughter and shared moments never anything beyond friendly until recently. With Linda's actions, I found myself naturally drifting toward Eva's warmth and understanding. We met at a wine bar, a cozy little place where the dim lighting and soft jazz music allowed for easy conversation. Ava smiled when she saw me, her eyes lighting up in a way that made me feel valued. We ordered light dinners and a bottle of wine, and before long we were laughing like old friends. Ava was different. She appreciated my sense of humor in a way that Linda never did. We shared stories, danced to the gentle music, and more than once, our eyes lingered on each other's longer than necessary. I wasn't trying to replace Linda. I was simply trying to find a way to not feel broken. By the time I dropped Ava off at her apartment, it was nearly 10. Before leaving, she reached over, leaving a gentle kiss on my cheek, her lips brushing just enough to leave a faint mark. "Go and get her, Ron," she whispered with a playful smile. When I got home, Linda was already waiting. She was still dressed in her date outfit, her eyes wide with surprise. "Where the hell have you been?" she demanded. "Not your business," I said casually, hanging my blazer on the back of a chair. Linda's face twisted in confusion. "What do you mean, not my business? You didn't tell me you were going anywhere." I laughed dryly. "Did you tell me where you were going tonight, Linda? Should I ask if he used a condom, or should I just not care? Because I don't plan on touching you ever again. It doesn't matter to me what you did or where you went." Linda stared at me, her mouth agape. "What is this?" she demanded. "Who were you with?" "Her name is Eva," I replied, my tone measured and calm. "If your idea of marriage is to dress up for some random guy, I figured I'd do the same. The only difference is that I was honest enough to tell you her name." Linda's eyes filled with tears, and her voice cracked. You're trying to make me jealous?" I shrugged. "I'm just doing what you did. Only I'm not hiding anything." Tears rolled down her cheeks, her makeup smudging. "Ron, I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't think it would come to this." I shook my head slowly, the disappointment settling in my chest. I warned you, Linda. There are consequences. She sobbed, her shoulders shaking, and I felt a pang of something close to regret. But I knew there was no going back now. The trust was shattered, and I had no intention of pretending anymore. Linda looked up, her face wet with tears. What now? Now, I said, taking a deep breath. Now, you figure out what you want, and I do the same. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling a lawyer. We'll split everything, and you can have your freedom. She choked back a sob, and I turned away, heading up the stairs to the guest room. There was nothing left to say, not tonight. This was only the beginning, but whatever came next, I would be ready. And Linda, well, she would have to live with the choices she made. I woke up early the next morning, sunlight peeking through the guest room curtains. The events of the previous night lingered in my mind, a heavy reminder of how my life had changed in such a short time. I knew I had to move forward, but I couldn't let go of the anger boiling inside me. Linda's betrayal wasn't something I could forgive, and today, she would learn what it meant to cross me. First, I called my lawyer, Jason, and scheduled an urgent appointment. He was a friend from college who had always looked out for me, and I knew I could trust him with what was to come. After a quick shower, I dressed in jeans and a crisp shirt, ready to make a statement. When I stepped into the living room, Linda was already there. She looked exhausted, her eyes puffy and her expression hollow. She hadn't slept, and for a brief moment I almost felt pity. Almost. "Ron," she said, her voice breaking. "Can we talk?" I looked at her, a slight smirk forming on my face. "Sure, Linda. Let's talk about consequences. What would you like to say?" She hesitated, biting her lower lip. I'm sorry for last night. I shouldn't have gone. It was stupid, and I didn't mean to hurt you." "Didn't mean to hurt me?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Linda, you made your choice. You chose excitement over our marriage, over me." She started to cry, her shoulders slumping forward. "I thought I wanted something else, but I realized it was all a mistake. Please, Ron, give me another chance." I stared at her, the words leaving my mouth devoid of emotion. "Another chance? Do you honestly think I'm that naive?" Before she could respond, I turned and walked out the door. There was no point in listening to more of her lies. Today was about reclaiming my power. The first stop was my lawyer's office. Jason greeted me with a firm handshake and a sympathetic nod. He listened quietly as I laid out the entire story: Linda's betrayal, her actions, my confrontation, and my plans for moving forward. "Ron, if you're sure about this, we can draft the paperwork today," Jason said, leaning back in his chair. "We'll start with a formal notice, and if she contests, we can escalate things." I nodded, a determination taking root inside me. I want everything in motion by the end of the day. I'm done playing games. Jason agreed, and I signed the initial documents. As I left his office, I felt a strange sense of freedom mixed with rage. This wasn't just about divorce. It was about showing Linda exactly what she had thrown away. Next, I called my old friend, Jake. Jake had a reputation, one that most people didn't know about. He was the kind of guy who could make problems disappear, the kind of guy you called when you wanted to make a statement without leaving a trace. "Jake," I said, my voice low, "I need your help." He didn't ask many questions. He never did. We met at a diner on the outskirts of town. Jake sat there, his tattooed arms folded across his chest, a knowing smirk on his face. "You look like hell, man," he said as I slid into the booth across from him. I chuckled darkly. "Feels about right. Listen, I need you to send a message to someone." Jake nodded, listening as I laid out the details: Kevin South, the man Linda had been with, his car, his habits. Jake smiled, that wicked grin that promised results. "Consider it done," he said, standing up and tossing a few bills on the table for our coffee. "No one screws you over, Ron. I'll make sure he remembers this. By the time I returned home, it was late afternoon. Linda was in the kitchen, sitting at the table, staring blankly at her phone. She looked up when I entered, her eyes hopeful. "Ron, where have you been? We need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. I shook my head. "No, Linda. I've done all the talking I'm going to do. My lawyer will be in touch. We're done." Her face went pale and she stood up, her hands shaking. "You're really going to divorce me?" I smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "Yes, and that's not all." She looked confused, her eyes searching mine. "What do you mean?" "You'll see soon enough," I replied, walking past her, grabbing my keys, and heading out again. That night, I parked my car a few blocks from Kevin South's building. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. It didn't take long. Jake and his crew were efficient. Kevin's car sat in the parking lot, or rather what was left of it. The windows were smashed, the tires slashed, and the paint was scraped off, leaving deep scars on the metal. But the real masterpiece was what they had done to the interior. Baby powder, glue, and God knows what else. They had made sure Kevin wouldn't be driving it anytime soon. As I watched from a distance, Kevin came out of the building. He froze at the sight of his car, his mouth opening in shock. His face turned red, and I saw him pull out his phone, probably to call the police. But I knew they wouldn't find anything. Jake's crew was thorough. I felt a sense of satisfaction settle in my chest. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up early and packed up the rest of my things. Linda was still asleep, her face blotchy from crying. I didn't bother waking her up. Instead, I left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, along with a note that simply read, "You wanted freedom. Here it is." I loaded my suitcase into my car and drove to Eva's place. She had offered me her spare room until I figured things out, and I was grateful. But this wasn't about moving on just yet. This was about making sure Linda understood the full weight of her actions. By the time Linda woke up, she had already received a notice from my lawyer. She called me, her voice panicked, but I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't interested in hearing her pleas anymore. Later that afternoon, I received a text from Eva. "Linda's at the door. Should I let her in?" I texted back, "No. She made her choice. I'm making mine." Linda had to learn that the world didn't revolve around her desires, that there were consequences for betrayal, and they were far-reaching. The following week, I moved forward with the divorce proceedings. Linda tried to fight it, of course. She called, she texted, she even tried showing up at my work. But I was prepared. My lawyer was ruthless, and I made sure Linda understood that she wouldn't be getting a single extra cent from me. The house lease was up in 3 months, and she could deal with finding a new place. I didn't care anymore. And then, one day, Linda came to my work parking lot. I saw her standing there, tears streaming down her face, waiting by my car. I walked past her, not even sparing her a glance. She called my name, her voice breaking, but I kept walking. "You were right, Ron," she yelled after me. "I'm a fool. I was stupid. Please, I'm begging you." I stopped, turning to look at her. Her eyes were red, her face desperate. I took a deep breath. "Linda, it's over. You made your choice, and I'm making mine. I won't let you back into my life." She sobbed, collapsing to her knees, and for a brief moment, I felt a pang of regret. But then I remembered Kevin, the betrayal, the lies, the selfishness, and the regret vanished. I turned away, leaving her behind, walking into the building with a sense of finality. Ava and I continued to see each other casually, but we both knew that what we had was more about comfort than long-term love. Eventually, we parted on good terms, both realizing we wanted different things. I moved into a townhouse near my work, a fresh start that gave me the space I needed. Months later at the gym, I met Sophie. She was different, strong, confident, and fiercely loyal. We grew close, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy. There were no lies, no games, just two people who had found each other amidst the wreckage of their pasts. Linda moved out of state, and I never saw her again. Kevin, on the other hand, had to deal with more than just a vandalized car. He left the company after rumors started spreading about his affairs, and last I heard, he moved somewhere far enough to start over without the baggage of his reputation. And me? I learned that love isn't just about giving. It's also about knowing when to walk away. And sometimes, the only way to heal is to let the person who broke you feel the weight of their choices.